So I came into the hearing with high hopes. I must say, however, that the answers Ms. Lynch gave in this hearing room, in my judgment, render her unsuitable for the position of Chief Law Enforcement Officer for this nation. I wish that were not the case. She had ample opportunity to make clear where she stood. The most difficult thing for any Attorney General to do is to have the courage to stand up to the President who appointed that Attorney General. It was asked, what would you expect her to do? Well, for an Attorney General, I would expect an Attorney General nominee to candidly state that she would be faithful to the law and the Constitution and not simply rubber stamp the authority of the President. The answers Ms. Lynch gave at this hearing were nothing short of breathtaking. When she was asked how she would differ from Eric Holder, she could provide no way whatsoever in which she would differ from Eric Holder. That was not a good start. When she was asked about President Obama's illegal and unconstitutional executive amnesty, amnesty which I might note, no less a legal scholar than Barack Obama has 22 times noted he lacked the authority to issue, an amnesty which I would note just last week a federal district court declared illegal. Ms. Lynch pledged to support executive amnesty, saying she found the legal justification reasonable. But it doesn't just stop at that. It's not simply this is an Attorney General who will carry out this illegal and unconstitutional executive amnesty. Ms. Lynch went much further. When Ms. Lynch was asked, in her legal judgment, would the theory of prosecutorial discretion allow President Obama to extend amnesty to all 12 million people here illegally, she refused to answer that question. When Ms. Lynch was asked if, in her understanding of prosecutorial discretion, a subsequent president could instruct the Treasury Department to no longer collect taxes in excess of 25%, she refused to answer that question. When Ms. Lynch was asked if a subsequent president exercising her theory of prosecutorial discretion could instruct the federal government that no federal labor law or environmental law would be enforced in any way against the state of Texas, she refused to answer that question. Look, that was by design an absurd hypothetical. That should have been an easy answer. The answer is no, that's patently unconstitutional. Throughout the course of the hearing, Ms. Lynch consistently refused to acknowledge any limitation whatsoever on the authority of the President of the United States. Over and over and over again, when Ms. Lynch was asked if she agreed with the Holder Department of Justice's position that the government could place a GPS tracker on the automobile of every single American in this nation with no probable cause whatsoever, a position, I might note, that was rejected unanimously by the United States Supreme Court, she refused to answer that question. When Ms. Lynch was asked if she agreed with the Holder Justice Department's position that the First Amendment provides no protection whatsoever for a church or synagogue selecting its pastor or priest or rabbi, a position that was also rejected unanimously by the United States Supreme Court, she refused to answer that question. When Ms. Lynch was asked if she believed the federal government could constitutionally use a drone to kill an American citizen on American soil if that individual posed no imminent threat, at the hearing she refused to answer that question. And when Ms. Lynch was asked about the IRS targeting of American citizens for their political views, targeting that was found by the Inspector General of the Department of Treasury, targeting which at the time the President of the United States said he was angry about and the American people had a right to be angry about. When Ms. Lynch was asked if she would be willing to go a different path than Eric Holder, not to assign that so-called investigation to a partisan Democrat who is a major donor to President Obama and the Democratic Party, but instead to follow the path that Elliot Richardson took under Richard Nixon and that Janet Reno took under Bill Clinton, of appointing a special prosecutor to faithfully and fairly investigate corruption and abuse of power? He refused to answer that question. Now, I would note to my friends on this side of the aisle, every one of us is deeply dismayed by the lawlessness of Eric Holder. But there's a difference. Mr. Holder began disregarding the law after he was confirmed. In this instance, Ms. Lynch has sat in this room and told the members of this committee what she intends to do. If those answers are not sufficient to vote against a nominee, I don't know what answers would be. Because, for those of us who vote for her, we should not be surprised if President Obama comes back trying to grant amnesty to 12 million instead of 4 million. And Ms. Lynch rubber stamps that as acceptable. We should not be surprised if over the next 2 years we continue to see abuse of power, abuse of executive authority, regulatory abuse, and the Department of Justice rubber stamping it over and over and over and over again. When a nominee for Attorney General cannot identify any limit whatsoever on the authority of the President, then each of us are on notice. She has told us her views. Those views are radical. Those views undermine the rule of law. And in my view, no senator who is serious about our obligation to defend the Constitution and rule of law should be willing to confirm any Attorney General, Republican or Democrat, who is unwilling to stand up for the Constitution in limiting the president who appointed them. And for that reason, I believe the only responsible course of action for the Senate is to reject this nomination.